Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm James, continuing on with my build of this RC plane, which is the Aeromite. It's a balsa wood RC plane. I'm building off of a set of plans. This is not a boxed kit that you can go out and buy, but if you're interested in building this plane and you want to get a set of the plans, you can check out my introduction video for this build series. So in this video, I plan on finishing up with the sheeting of the fuselage and also blocking in the nose area by the engine up here in the engine compartment area. And I wanted to point out a few things before I get started with this. One of them is that I have to install this little piece of plywood that you see right here. Zoom in a little bit. And that little piece of plywood is there to help support the landing gear. I think it's a little bit on the thin side, so I'm going to go ahead and increase that. I'm going to get a little bit thicker piece for that. Also, I have to install, like I mentioned, these blocks for the nose area of the airplane. I don't have these exact size pieces, these thick pieces, so I'm going to build them up a little bit. Again, no big deal there. And then one thing I want to point out last here, or the last thing I want to point out here, is that I want to place or locate the exit holes for the control rods. So I'm going to feed those through, through this little hole right here. And I'm going to feed them through into the back of the airplane back here by the tail section. And I just want to locate where they are, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop a couple of holes to get those kind of roughed in, because once this is closed up, it's going to be hard to kind of see inside. Well, we won't be able to see inside there at all. So I think it'll be easier to do it that way. I'm not going to install the control rods. I'm just going to go ahead and put the exit holes for them right now while this is all opened up and I can see inside there. Also, what I wanted to mention to you is that I measured the top of each of these formers, and I realized this one toward the back here was a little on the short side. So what I did off camera, as you can see that, I added a little strip of balsa wood on there, and I just sanded it. So now it's nice and straight all the way across those bulkheads or those formers. And then the other thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go ahead and build a hatch, at least get the hatch started so I can access the fuel tank, which is going to be right up in this compartment here. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. It's going to be pretty simple. And I think that's about all I wanted to mention before I get started. Oh, one more thing, this will be the last thing, is that the sheet that is going to be covering the side of the fuselage here is going to be one piece. And because this is where my tank is, I'm going to start it right here. And it comes, obviously down back to the tail section here. It's slanted over, so I can't cut it off of the plans because it's slanted over, it would be too short if I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get it lined up as I need on the fuselage itself and kind of cut it to fit. I have to put this sort of like 45-degree angle in it. Again, no big deal. And then on top of that will be just a sheet on top here and also in the front here. So let's take a quick look at the wood I'll be using for this step. So this is just a piece of 1/8 inch thick balsa, which I'm going to be using for part of the hatch that I'm making up here. I'm going to be using this thicker piece of plywood. I think it's about 1/4 inch thick to put in here for the landing gear, like I mentioned. And then I have my sheeting, which I think is 1/16 inch sheeting for the side sheets right here. And then I have these bigger pieces. Oh, that's what this is for. This is a piece of scrap. I have these bigger pieces to block off or block in the fuselage up here. And as I think I mentioned before in a previous video, the engine is going to just fit in here. It fits in here pretty snugly. So snugly, I guess that's a word. But I'm going to end up probably cutting a lot of what I do today out. But again, it's easier for me to just go ahead and block it all in now and then cut it to fit later instead of trying to guess kind of what to cut now without the engine being in there. Oh, and I need this little piece right here, which is going to go right on the nose. We'll glue that on. To get started, I'm just going to go ahead and mark my control rod like I mentioned and get that step taken care of. So I'm just going to feed this through. Servos are going to be right inside here. And I'm just going to feed this through into the holes that we have in this back former. Let me do this one over here until it touches the side right there with the fuselage. Now the thing about this is because it's an angle and the control rod is going to be coming out like this, it's just basically going to be a slot. It's not going to be like a round hole. So I'm going to push this in just a little bit more, get a little bit of a bend in it like that. And I know basically right there is kind of like maybe the center of where that slot's going to be. And it doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm just going to go ahead. I know it's right there. I'm going to move this back a little bit, right there. Oops, I just just moved. Go do that again. Sorry about that. So somewhere like right about there is where I want to have my exit hole. I'm just going to use this pin vise here to get it through. There it is. And leave it just like that. That's just the way I can tell when I come back later. Then I can feed this through in that direction. I'll have to open this up, like I mentioned, as a slot. So I'll do the same thing with this side off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll start blocking off the front here and putting on the sheeting. Well, I decided to go ahead and just start with my little landing gear plate that I'm going to put in. So let me go ahead and measure. It's about 1 inch thick or 1 inch wide according to the plan. So put a little couple marks on here. That, and then we'll cut it. We'll cut this off, and then we'll go ahead and trim it to fit inside the fuselage. Well, my little razor saw wasn't working when I was first trying to cut this, but the coping saw worked out pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go ahead and cut the blocks for the nose area out of this larger material here, and then I'm going to go ahead and epoxy everything together at once. So I'm going to go ahead and epoxy the landing gear plate here at that time also, just so I don't have to mix up too much epoxy. So let me go ahead and cut these other pieces. We'll get them to fit, and then we'll glue them all on. Well, we'll let this cure and probably overnight, and then I'll come back and take this off of here, and I'm not going to shape it right now, but we'll finish up with the sheeting on the bottom and on the sides and on the top, and then I'll build this little hatch for here. It's not going to be complete yet, but I'm just going to get it shaped into the way it needs to be. I don't know exactly how I'm going to connect it yet, but we'll get that placed, and then I can sand and kind of finish up the fuselage. So I let this sit overnight, and I think it's ready to go now. We pull off all of these pins and the tape. So I'm going to start with this front section here, which is 1/8 inch balsa sheeting, and then the remaining half, or the rear half of the plane on the bottom, is going to be 1/16 inch balsa sheeting. So now I can move on to the top side sheeting. Now again, you know, it's on an angle, so I can't use the plans to cut a template from because they would be too short in this direction. So my approach is going to be like this. It's going to be a little trickier than what we did on the bottom here. This is pretty simple. But the way I'm going to plan on doing this, or the way I'm going to try doing it, is I'm going to take my sheet like this, and I'm only going to this former here because again, this is going to be a little hatch in here that I'm going to be making later. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of attach it on like this. Just hold it on there, if you will, like that. And then as we get to the back, we see that because we have the stabilizer here, it rises up. So I'm going to have to go ahead and cut like a little, sort of like a little dog leg or a little piece of this out of here so that this sits down flush on top of the side of the fuselage here. So once I get that done, then I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over, hold it without dropping it. And then I'm just going to mark the top of my formers along each one of those. I'll mark each one. And then I'm just going to draw a line basically from here to here, and then also along the front from here to here. And then because we have our canopy, the kind of phony canopy which comes up at like a 45-degree angle, I'm just going to draw a line kind of up like this until it intersects this line, and then I'll just cut it out. And then hopefully that'll fit nicely. I'll do a little test fit on it, and if it fits okay, I'll use this piece that I cut to make the piece for the other side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the bottom of the sheet here, I'm going to bevel it because we have this angle, right? And I want to make it sort of flush when it kind of goes up against the top of the side of the fuselage like that. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a bevel in there so I can get it as flush as possible. And then I'm going to cut it, you know, a little bit higher than each one of these so I have some room to work. But hopefully by cutting it rough and doing that, I can get it on there. Then I can trim it to the right, you know, trim it down to the proper shape. And then we can put our top sheets on. So looking again at the plan, I realized that the cockpit kind of angles back more than 45 degrees. Actually, it looks like it's closer to about, you know, 30 degrees. So I'm just going to use my 30-60 triangle that I have right here to mark that. And that should be okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be anything you wanted really in here. So it's not a big deal at all. Okay, folks, well, geometry, geometry, geometry. It may be hard to tell, but the deal is because the fuselage is curved and because it's angled back, it's not like it's going to be able to sit straight on there because of it's not a straight edge. It actually has a little bit of a curve in it. So if I put this down on here, back here, for example, kind of get this back piece kind of lined up, you'll see that as I get toward the front up here, it overhangs a little bit. And that's again because there's a curve in the fuselage and also because there's a tilt back in the side there. So it's no big deal. It's going to have to just trim this little bottom edge a little bit just to get things to fit. And if it doesn't fit perfectly, that's okay. I can fill it in a little bit here and there. And at the end of the day, it's going to be covered with monocoat. Well, that was a little interesting. It wasn't too bad. I just had to work with it and kind of take my time. Looks like it fits on here okay. Let's see here. So what I want to do is I want to use this piece now to trace for the other side. Hopefully it'll fit on the other side the same. It should be pretty darn close. Yeah, something like that. So, okay. And you kind of see I'm a little bit off there. I'm going to have to maybe trim this a little bit. Again, this angle's not a big deal. And I'm a little bit high here and here. Let's see over here. Looks like I'm a little bit high. So I'll just trim it to fit now that I got it closer. Okay, so let me go ahead and trim this a little bit, and then I'll make another one for the other side. Just going to basically use this as a pattern. So I want to point out again how we end up kind of getting that little curve in there. I got this thing set up on this grid here on my work surface, and you can see kind of how it's straight up on top of here. This is still the square side of the piece of sheeting that I had. Time you get out here, you can kind of see how it actually takes this upturn, and it looks like it's off, but it's not, because again the fuselage is curved and it's also tilting back, so everything sort of comes together as you saw when I put that on there. So just have to take your time doing that. And obviously if you're trying to cut this off of the plans, it's not going to work. It's just not going to be the same. So you can't use, again, you can't use the plans as a template to cut this piece right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do another one like this, and then do a little bit of sanding and such and get them fit right, and then we'll glue them on. All right, well, with a little bit of work, I think I have both sides now finished. And if you look closely, what I did, and I mentioned it before, is I beveled some of these edges. I beveled this edge here and this edge on the back. The top is not going to be beveled because it's going to be on top of the, there's going to be a sheet on top of that. But again, I beveled, hopefully you can kind of see that I beveled the bottom of it so that everything kind of fits down on top of this thing nice and straight. So I put this guy on here like this. I'm not going to be able to hold it all with my, I only have so many thumbs, but this guy will go back on here like this. And hopefully, oh, there you go. So you can kind of get the picture there. Looks pretty good. Now in the back here in the tail section, it comes together sort of in a little point, but there's going to be a little space in between there. I'm just going to fill that in, and that's kind of how it's shown on the plan. It's flat back here, so it doesn't come down to a point. So let me show you that. You can see this piece right here, how it's flat like that. One thing I wanted to point out before I started gluing on the sides is on this one former right here, for some reason, maybe I cut it a little bit too thin, I'm not sure, but I was getting a little bit of a gap. The sheeting was kind of too far in, and so what I decided to do is just add a little kind of a shim, as you can see here, on both sides of that one former. Just shimmed it up a little bit just to kind of bring it out a little bit more for a better fit. But overall, it's good now. And I just wanted to point that out. Again, this one over here also before. So that's just the nature of it for me. You know, it's not perfect. And as I'm moving along here, I've noticed little things here and there. So I just try to fix them as I go. But all right, so now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the sides. I let this sit for a few minutes, and now I'll just take these pins out. And what I can do next is I'm going to have to trim down, sort of the kind of shape and trim the top down to meet the top of these formers here. And then we'll put our top sheets on, which is going to be a 332-inch piece of balsa sheeting, a little bit thicker than the sides, which are the 1/16 of an inch. So I'll go ahead and I will do that now. I'll get this trimmed down to match, get it kind of lined up how I want it. You may hear a little bit of music in the background. That's my neighbors. I guess they're having some kind of a party or something, but hopefully it won't be too distracting because I want to keep moving on this. I let this sit for a little bit, and now I think it's cured up. So now I'm going to work on the hatch, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to basically trace or kind of get these two kind of former shapes made, and then I'm going to sheet it just like the top and bottom, just like here. It'll just be able to come off then. And I think I'm going to attach it as I'm going to put a little block right back in here with probably like a T-nut, and I'm thinking maybe just a dowel that will go in here. So hopefully I can kind of just pop it in like this. Well, unfortunately I should have traced these little formers before I sheeted everything, but I think I may be able to get in there with my long pencil lead here. Let's try it. All right, so right there. All right, so I did some sanding and cutting and shaping and all that kind of stuff, and I think I got this hatch to work. I'd be lying to you if I said it was perfect, because it's not, but I think it's okay. And again, you know, once things get covered with your covering material, your monocoat and such, you know, you don't see a lot of the little blemishes and things. But in any case, so this is on here now. My plan is to put this on, hopefully have a dowel in the front like this, and be able to push it in and then down like that, and then use a small little screw or like a little bolt with a T-nut or something right back here. That's why I put this gap right here, because I want to put a little mounting area here for like a little T-nut or something like that. So we'll see later. I'm just going to put this on like this for now. I was thinking also maybe I could do it like this if I had a kind of a hinge or something, but we'll see. I'm going to think about that for a little while. But for now, I think this is good enough. And then what I'm going to do is I'll tape it on here and then start doing the shaping, cutting all the extra rough stuff off and shape the fuselage. All right, well, I think you get the picture. I'm just going to be going around and trimming off the excess material. I'm not going to show all of that because it's probably going to take me over an hour to do all that, and I don't think that's really going to be something that everybody wants to watch. So let me go ahead and work on this for a while, and then we'll come back. I'll show a little bit here and there, but I'll come back when it's mostly finished, and then we'll do some sanding. Okay, well, I've been sanding away and smoothing all the edges out and everything else, but I am going to have to use some filler. I'm just going to go ahead and use some, what do I have here? This is just my DAP plastic wood. I'm going to fill in some areas up here in the kind of the tip and the nose right up here. There's a couple little gaps and such. I'll probably do maybe a little bit of filling. There's a couple little seams here and there that are a little bit open, like right in here. I'll probably fill those in. Again, you're not going to see that because it's going to be covered, but I like to fill it in anyhow. And then I have the way the tail kind of ended up back in here. Right here. You can kind of see they kind of came together like that. So I'm just going to put some filler in there also. And then maybe right along here. So in any case, just going to kind of clean it up. And then I'll do another round of sanding. But I think the fuselage is getting very close now. All right, and for this, I'm just using this DAP plastic wood, sort of an all-purpose wood filler. I like this stuff. It cures pretty quick, and it's also really strong and sandable, so it's really good for this kind of thing. So I let this cure for a little while, and now it's ready for some final sanding. All right, well, I think that's going to be about it for this video. I made a lot of progress. I got it mostly sanded. I'm going to be doing a little bit of touch up here and there, but overall I think it's pretty close. I like how it came out, and a little tricky here and there with the side panel. The side piece right here was a little tricky, but other than that I think it came out okay. Now, of course, in the front here I have my little hatch that I made for so I can access the fuel tank. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to hook that on yet, but I think I have a plan for that I'm going to think about. And then, of course, I need to open up this front end and make room for the engine. And again, a lot of it's going to be taken out. So that's what I'm going to be doing in my next video of this build series. I'm going to be opening up the engine compartment so I can fit the OS15LA in there. And I'm also going to be putting the sort of hardware in here so I can attach this little hatch here. Okay, so thanks for watching my channel. I always appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.